Good day, everybody. Where have we seen this before, eh? That's right, we're making another suit. I'm very thrilled to be cracking on with this project at last. There's always a sort of post-project honeymoon period where I kind of reflect with relative satisfaction on the job. If not well done outright, then better done than the previous one. But I pretty quickly transitioned, in this case, to relative dissatisfaction, actually, with the wedding suit that I've made. Regardless, I was always gonna get on and make another suit soon, so here I am. And yeah, it's about to be summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, so I thought, why not get going on a nice little linen suit that I will wear for, well, who knows what occasion. But you know, never hurts to have these things around, and most importantly, it's going to be a lot of fun to make. So the wedding suit series was basically a tutorial series, wasn't it? And I don't think it's really necessary for me to repeat that and basically show every step and explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and so on. If you do want or need a tutorial on how to make a full suit, then you can find that video here. But for today and for, you know, I guess the few videos that could come out of this, because obviously it's going to take a little while to make this bad boy, I'm just going to probably let it hang out a bit and work through at my own pace, not necessarily show everything I'm doing, although try and focus in on anything I'm doing that maybe is different from the last time, or anything that I feel like I just, you know, have more to say about than maybe I gave myself time to do first time around. Anyway, yeah, as you can see, this is a, well, I say as you can see, maybe you can't see. This is a brown linen, a nice chocolate brown linen, which I'm extremely fond of. And yeah, the pattern I'm using is just the same pattern as for the last suit, obviously. You know, it's my big hope to kind of nail down this pattern as a template for all of my future suit projects. I've made a few tweaks, just tapering things in, you know, tightening up the fit, and also just slightly change the shape of the front of the jacket. But otherwise, it's more or less as it was. We're basically running it back. So starting off just sewing the darts, as ever. Yeah, I'm often forgetting that with the darts, you're kind of meant to, rather than backstitching with the machine, leave the threads loose and tailing so that you can tie them off like this. It's just a little bit less intrusive on the dart itself in terms of the volume. And yeah, and then I'm also actually like snipping the dart open down the middle so that I can actually press it flat. And having added a bit of depth and volume into the dart actually makes it a little bit easier to do than it was previously, because I had quite a shallow dart on the last jacket. You know, that was more like, I don't know, I think 1.5 centimeters, and I think I've upped it to 2. So yeah, small margins, but it all makes a difference. Yeah, and then I'm gonna press these, but I'm also gonna have a little experiment with ironworking, which I'm gonna do off camera in case it's absolutely worthless. And it's my first time really properly trying it, so there's also no point pretending that I'm gonna offer any kind of tutorial on it. All right, so I've pressed it. I've tried a little bit to do some funky ironworking stuff. I don't really know if it's worked. I think it's worked a little bit. Obviously, a lot of this volume is coming from the dart itself and the way that's distorting the shape of the panel. But the idea was I tried to reduce some of the volume that it creates at the bottom of the dart here by sort of, you know, using lots of steam, holding the iron down on it, lots of steam again, circles of reducing circumference, things like that. Again, I'm not really sure I've achieved much here. You know, linen should be amenable to this, or rather the linen cotton blend that this is. So that's 82% linen, 18% cotton. But yeah, I mean, I think something's kind of happened. Yeah, and then just stretching it around the side seam there, a little bit sort of between the waist and the top of the sleeve, taking a bit of that stretch back out of the front of the armhole just to kind of get that back to how it should be. And then just stretching it out through the chest area. So trying to generate this sort of fullness here that you see, and a little bit up into the shoulder as well. And yeah, as far as stretching is concerned, the method is sort of holding the iron down, using lots of steam. And you know, if you imagine I've got the iron here and I'm basically pulling while holding down with the iron and pulling away in sort of X-like shape with the iron, and all the time pulling the fabric away from where the iron is. Again, this is my first time trying this out, so I'm not trying to be especially informative on this particular point. I'm sure there are some of you watching who do know what I'm trying to talk about here, and either will be able to therefore appreciate the either successful or unsuccessful effort that I've made to do this. Just you know, just trying to keep you abreast of what is going on. So I'm getting on with the welt pocket, as you can possibly tell. So yeah, I've kind of played it by ear with the placement of this. I've kind of tried to make it so that it's roughly level with where the armhole seam is going to meet the side seam armhole seam, and so that when this is actually folded up, so this is the line on which I'm actually going to sew it to the front panel, it will then be a little bit above that, so more like level with the armhole notch there. Yeah, so I just need to get on and put these little pieces together. It's a very fiddly construction this, but actually quite straightforward once you sort of get the hang of it. As long as you do get the hang of it. Yeah, I had toyed with maybe doing a patch pocket for the breast pocket as well, as I'm going to do with the hip pockets in a minute, but I think I just thought it's a little bit more niche even than patch hip pockets, so I figured let's just keep it simple, keep it classic. And in any case, I think I'd only really successfully made well, don't know if I've truly successfully made a single welt pocket in my time. I'm trying to make sure I don't get too ahead of myself with trying new fancy things before I've really gotten to grips with the sort of, the standard features like, breast welt pockets. That said, I still feel like I'm similarly dissatisfied with my jetted pocket efforts so far, and I am throwing those out the window for this jacket, like I said, in favour of hip patch pockets, because, they're just calling to me. Yoink. Yeah, see, I've already mucked up by sewing both pieces of pocketing to this handsome individual. I also really find getting the angles lined up with these things a little bit confusing. So the idea is, just to clarify what I mean, is that, you have these slanted pieces, slanted pocketing pieces and a slanted welt piece itself. And the idea is that once it all turns out and the welt is sat at the angle it's going to be at on the jacket, that the pocket bag will be hanging down straight. And yeah, the first time I did it, I got it wrong, so that it was like the reverse and that there was this very dramatic slant to the pocket bag, which is not the end of the world really, because I don't know whoever actually uses these pockets except for little things like, what are they called, chest squares. And I'm not quite that foppish just yet, but anyway, boo-hoo, it's difficult. Stern words to myself there. Anyway, I'm a very careless unpicker incidentally, as you probably can tell. All right, that should be fixed. Yeah, I finally got myself some fancy proper basting thread. Clay stelle, as I believe they say in the mother country. As in all the gear, no idea pursuits, I can't imagine it's going to make any significant differences to the quality of what I make with it, but one can dream. Oh, I had such a breakdown yesterday trying to cut this all out with my shears. I think they'd achieved levels of bluntness that, even by their standards, were frankly unforgivable. Not that it's their fault, obviously. Ooh. Yeah, I'd be curious to know everyone's preferred method of shear sharpening. I have a whetstone that I got from the gardening centre, which, does work. I'm sure I'm just doing something wrong, or not doing it enough. But anyway, I feel like it all made way more sense in my head last time. Truly, one of the reasons I am most thrilled to get back to sewing suits is all the basting I get to do. This was obviously one of my most exhausting refrains first time around. But I've missed it so much. And again, I got myself that nice thread. I was wondering when I'm actually going to get a chance to roll out this bad boy. And here we are. Let's do the old switcheroo. Oh yeah, happy days. When you're watching sort of like ASMR style, Instagrammable tailoring content, there's something about the fully basted final jacket before all the basting is taken out that, if anything, is somehow more delightful than the completed garment. There's one thing I was disappointed about the last one is that the basting itself, this purely structural, construction-oriented stitching was kind of a little bit messy. I want to get to that point where I'm just about to take all the basting out and I'm looking at it and being like, you know what, I almost don't want to. So maybe this will be the time, although these mark stitches are already kind of spoiling the show. Who cares? Not really important, not really what it's about. And yet. Ooh. Oh, come on. Yoink. Yeah, I don't know what your approaches are to the whole when to change your needle question, but I'm very much a leave it until it breaks kind of guy, and guess what just happened? Oops. Oh, come on. There you go. Yeah, so you can see now that is going to then fold up like that way, and the pocket bag, when it falls down, will be correctly perpendicular. Yeah, not looking too bad. I'll take it. I'd be curious to know from any sort of more seasoned sewists / tailors than myself, if there ever comes a point where you're not absolutely nerve-wracked by the whole snipping open the welt pocket, pipe pocket, triangular prong situation, because I don't know how many times I've done it, but still takes my breath away, and not in a good way. See, I've missed making that noise. I feel like I haven't really been doing that in the more recent videos. I'm sure you all feel the same. I really should probably be looking a bit more carefully at what I'm doing. Because just the cruelest thing about this is you think, okay, I've gone about as close as I think is safe to go to snip. And then when you try and turn it out, it's like, no, you need to go way closer than that. Alrighty, that should be that, for better or worse. Let's see. All right then, well, after several rounds of trying to get nearer to that seam, I think I've just about got an acceptable result, so on we go. And of course, any excuse to do some cross-stitching, I will take it. I think this welt is coming out okay. I think also I might already do the old, the buttonhole twist finishing stitches like, you know, the bar tack. I think probably I'm only going to get around to doing the pockets today. Like I say, just kind of want to hang out, do some sewing, get started on this project. Maybe, you know, listen to some jazz, or at least you guys will listen to some jazz. I'm not piping it in as we speak. That said, I've always got jazz playing in my head. Oh no. Yep, I went for it. Here we are, bar tacking with my beautiful, what was it, Sita Bozzolo Reale silk buttonhole twist. Love this stuff. I'm enjoying this sort of a freewheeling approach. I certainly enjoyed the last series as well, but it was rather, what's the word, formulaic. I've no idea if this is actually remotely entertaining to watch, but I think I'd probably watch it, so. I'm always terrible at matching the angles of these bar tacks. I say always terrible, this is literally the second time I've ever done this, so. Yep, I'm pretty pleased with how this welt's turned out. And yeah, I think we'll get on with the patch pockets in the afternoon. And then maybe, yeah, if I have time, maybe I will do all the prick stitching. Because it's just nice to look at, you know, on the work in progress already. Alrighty, lunchtime. And now she blows. Handsome lady, I'd say. Okay, so I've sewn my side seams as well now, and I think the stretching that I'd done on the front panel had sort of discombobulated me a little bit, and I had to remember to match it on the side panel as well. So that's all done. Let's move on to the patch pockets, and obviously since, well, you know, I am basically doing this for the first time again, I might as well sort of do a walkthrough of what I'm doing. I don't think it's especially long-winded or complicated, so get on with that. So yeah, this is a pretty much free-handed patch pocket pattern shaped thing situation. You can, you know, just really design whichever shape you'd like, but the dimensions are, I think, about 23 centimeters top to bottom length plus plus an inch, which is to say 2.5 centimeters of folding over flap E-bit allowance at the top. And then it's 15 centimeters wide, or 6 inches, plus again, another 0.5 centimeter or 0.5 millimeters. I don't know what that is in inches, you're gonna have to deal with it, around all the other edges there. And yeah, I've got a bit of fusible interfacing on the wrong side or inside of the patch. That is just leaving this sort of 0.5 centimeter fringe around the edges. And then what I've got here, in my case, is pocketing, because I haven't got lining fabric yet. I don't really know what I want to go for. I think I'll go for a lightweight cotton. I guess it's more about what color to match this one. If you have any thoughts or wishes or suggestions, please feel free to make them in the comments. But anyway, yeah, you would ideally use lining to do this, to sort of make the inside of the flat pocket. Again, in my case, I've just got pocketing. So yeah, starting off, again, we've got this 2.5 centimeter or 1 inch flap allowance at the top there. On my pocket piece, which is the same dimensions as the actual patch pocket piece, just an extra 0.5 centimeters all around, I have folded down towards the inside just a 1.5 centimeter fringe there at the flap as well. And I'm going to lay this on top of its corresponding pocket piece. So I've got to be careful in my case because these aren't actually symmetrical. So they are sort of unique to their particular matching pocket, if that makes sense, as far as left or right pocket is concerned. I'm going to lay this so that this folded edge is just below where the sort of 2.5 centimeter, 1 inch fold is going to be. And then I'm going to baste it, yeah, wherever my basting thread has gone. So this is again, my fancy basting thread. And then this is designed for real live action tailoring, which means it can do this, which is quite fun. What about that, eh? So yeah, off we go. And having positioned this, I'm just going to baste it sort of relatively roughly just around the inside so that these pieces are kind of attached together. Yeah, I've just realized I ripped off the bit that had the knot on there, so that wasn't very clever. Well, that didn't take long, did it? I've sewed it to the wrong side, so at least I can do this, I suppose. Oh, can't even do that. Is there anything left to take away from me other than my dignity? So then I suppose that belongs with the other piece, and this is what I'm after. Let's try this again, shall we? That's more like it. So now, just from the other side, I'm going to trim this to be flush with the actual garment fabric patch that I got with the world's bluntest fabric shears, making one last honorary appearance before hopefully I can sharpen them for good. I really honestly think I need about half an hour on the whetstone with these bad boys because, well, they speak for themselves, don't they? You can hear that. Oh no. This is literally the thinnest cotton pocketing known to man. And you think I was trying to get through raw denim or something. Alrighty. So what I'm now doing is, from the fusible side, basting again around the very edge of this whole concoction, really so within this sort of 0.5 centimeter seam allowance. But as I'm doing so, I'm kind of pulling the actual garment fabric fused patch inwards so that it's creating almost this little bubbly effect in the middle against the sort of tighter backdrop of the lining itself. Not the lining, sorry, of the lining or the pocketing in my case. And the reason for doing this is as follows. You can imagine in a second, I'm going to properly machine stitch around this edge and attach these pieces together, and then I'm going to turn them inside out. And if I were to not do something akin to what I'm doing now, these two pieces, so the lining / pocketing and then the garment fabric, would be basically of identical sizes. And what I actually want is for the lining / pocketing bit to be smaller, to be sort of tauter, so that it's kind of pulling itself inwards. And what that's going to mean is that when I've sewn this pocket, this patch pocket, to the outside of the jacket itself, there's not going to be any sign of the pocketing / lining showing through from underneath that. It might be a bit clearer what I mean if it isn't already, once I actually do attach to the front panel. But yeah, this is quite an essential step because I have made a sort of patch pocket in this manner before for a breast pocket on this sort of sports coat that I made with this Japanese yarn-dyed cotton. And I didn't really think about this aspect of it, and you can kind of see the pocketing side of the pocket showing through to the outside where it's been sewn onto the outside of the jacket, which isn't ideal. And yeah, this is just a very elegant way to avoid that. So yeah, just a slightly clearer example of what I mean. So I'm just kind of pulling that in, showing just basically a couple of millimeters, 2-3 millimeters of the lining underneath it. So nothing too drastic, just enough to be confident that when I turn this inside out, this garment fabric piece is going to want to basically wrap around the lining / pocketing piece that it's attached to. Oh, this basting thread is so much smoother to use. I didn't think the basting experience could get any sweeter. And yet, holy moly, all right then. Yeah, so fine margins, but again, just once again trimmed that pocketing to match the edge of the garment piece itself. So just before I do sew around the actual edges for good, I'm just going to fold down this 1 inch allowance basically, and just sort of within the seam allowance on the sides, I'm just going to do a couple of basting stitches to hold this in place. Or I will if I remember to tie a knot. But let's just do it this way. Ah, for goodness sake. I'm not quite the muscle man that I thought I was, am I? All right then, so it's now time to sew this around the edges, and I'm going to do so from the lining / pocketing side, just to make sure nothing slips around unduly. Yeah, and just so that's my, what was it, 1/2 centimetre seam allowance all the way around, making sure to be nice and firm back stitching at the tops there. And yeah, then we'll be ready to turn this bad boy inside out. Alrighty then, so just snip these corners, yoink, and get rid of all my basting, which I no longer need. Ugh. Yeah, I'm not going to attempt any more Schwarzeneggerian yanks, if that's a way to put it. Okie dokie, moment of truth. Okay, yeah, it's kind of working out. What's going on there? Oh, interesting. Did I forget to take out some basting? No, it's just like that, is it? Okay, I'll try not to worry too much about it then. So just before I go and press it, I'm just basting again to sort of pull out the seam so it's not sort of tucked into itself, and make sure that the edge of this is very much the edge of the seam itself, and while doing so, just helping again massage the lining side around to the inside. So you can kind of see here that there's a little bit of a tension in the lining side and the pocketing side that's kind of pulling itself inwards, and I just want to baste it in place before I press it to kind of ensure that that's the position that I'm locking in before I then go and attach it. So around here I can just see the very, very finest sort of fringe of garment fabric poking round, which is how I want it to be. And this is just going to help ensure that that's what I'm going to achieve. So I think in this specific case, I've actually done a pretty bad job, but we'll see. It's wonderfully satisfying. Although I'm noticing that this pocket shape is kind of too small for my hands. I have sort of, I suppose, rather big hands. Don't know if I'm ever going to be doing much sort of lounging around with my hands stuffed in my pockets, leaning against sort of Renaissance pillars or something like that. While looking extremely cool, I think instead I'm going to be sticking my middle finger in there, wondering how on earth I'm going to get the loose change that I've hidden away at the bottom with such oafish hands as these. That's enough of that. Let's go press this. Sweet, so that's now been pressed. And just here, so I have these folded edges together with the lining / pocketing just beneath. It's not very straight here, it's not very neat, and I think it's kind of supposed to be a bit further down, but whatever. It's fine as it is, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to use my buttonhole twist again and just sort of finish this on the inside with a nice little prick stitch, because I'm fancy. So again, this is the twist. Oh, bother. This is the twist that has been run through tailor's wax, beeswax, and then pressed between a piece of paper just to fix the shape into the thread. No one's going to see this obviously, but it'll be nice to know it's there, won't it? Maybe I'll do a relatively generous stitch so I don't get too bogged down in this. Really, I'm getting nearer and nearer to the position of never using the machine again. I'm very fond of my machine, it does a very good job, but I do get annoyed with it sort of clogging up the desk space here sometimes. I guess I'm just too lazy to lug it up and down every hour when I need to sew one seam. It's my fault, not its. Okay then, so there we go. That's sort of that beautiful little pick stitch on the inside, and I haven't gone around to the outside, I've just sort of picked up the inside of the underfolded flap there. This is now ready to be attached to the garment. So I'm just placing this pocket basically between the side seam and the end of the dart. So I'm getting a piece of pocketing again to put on the wrong side as reinforcement, so just large enough to cover more than the size of the top of the pocket basically. So it's gonna kind of, obviously on the right side, gonna be in this sort of position, more or less. So I'm just basting this piece of pocketing on the wrong side as, you guessed it, reinforcement. I say you guessed it, I said it literally, 10 seconds ago. So no brownie points for you, I'm afraid. I'm not sure if this is pocketing actually. I think this might even be rather the lining fabric that I used for my aforementioned Japanese yarn-dyed sports coat / blazer. Basically the same kind of fabric, sort of thin cotton or polyester, don't remember which. Who cares? It's all the same to me. Yeah, once again, the world is ending outside, so please forgive the gloominess of the image. Gotta say, I'm finding this sort of storminess quite nostalgic actually. I remember when I was doing the wedding suit series and it was kind of winter, the fabric I was using was just blacker than black, it didn't reflect any light, and from a photographic standpoint, I used to really struggle because I shoot basically using the natural light coming through these windows, getting enough juice basically on my camera to get a sort of usable image. And I found then, I remember hoping, oh God, I can't wait till summer, spring comes and I can just rely on reliable natural light basically. Only now I've got it and I'm enjoying this sort of dark little phase. It's quite nice, this sort of cozy little lamplit, wintry, dare I say, atmosphere that it's creating. At least so I find. Happy days, good times, all that jazz. Right, so that's basted in place. I'm just going to turn back to the wrong side now and properly attach this where it needs to be attached. And if you remember, I know I haven't demonstrated it today in this video, but if you recall from making the welt pocket, you then kind of just cross stitch the pocket from the wrong side on the underside. And I'm basically going to do that here as well, cross stitching the top bits just for extra security, and then just a sort of more normal diagonal stitch around the length of the rest of the pocket. And I'm just using sort of the standard sewing thread here, so the garment coloured thread. I don't have any silk finishing thread in this colour. If I did, then I would probably use that. But it's all good, and to be honest, I could probably use basting thread here as well because this is all going to be covered on the inside by the canvas, so there's not really a premium on attractiveness / presentability in this context. What on earth am I talking about? Yeah, so I've cross-stitched there in that sort of pocketing zone at the very top of the pocket, and now I'm really just doing this kind of diagonal stitch. So obviously not showing through to the full outer side of the pocket on the right side, just sort of picking up all the layers between here and that one. And yeah, and really trying to be relatively firm. I've just looked on the other side, and I've got to say I've not done the best job in the whole having the lining / pocketing side of the pocket be shorter / tenser than the outside, because I can see a little bit of the pocketing poking through. Maybe I can also fix that with the prick stitch that I'm going to do in a second. You live and learn, but in theory, that's kind of the way it goes. So going back to my waxed buttonhole twist, I'm just going to add some, similarly to the welt pocket, just some of these diagonal bar tacks at the top. More decorative than structural, but I also hope slightly structural too. And yeah, as I said, I'm not entirely satisfied with the whole garment fabric being turned out to the outside here, but I think it's worked moderately well. And yeah, just I think if you're doing this yourself at home, make sure that when you're working in, easing in the garment fabric underneath the lining to sort of create those few millimeters of excess that you then trim away in order to generate that effect, really just make sure it's a good 3 millimeters or so. And then when it turns around to the inside, hopefully, it turns around to the right side, hopefully all should be as intended. I'm also going to prick stitch it after this, and I think that then will conclude the day's action. It's been good. It's been good getting back to this nonsense. Do it all day, all week, all month, all year, pretty much forever, indefinitely. Yeah, so I'm just trying to prick stitch very close to the edge here in my case. You could do a bit further in if you fancied, or indeed you could do multiple rows I understand that the more pick stitching there is, the more casual the effect. But, you know, I'm not really worried about it either way in this instance. But yeah, I'm just gonna do it here around the edge to kind of efface it, I suppose, you know, sort of increase its subtlety, you know, make it a little bit less eye-catching, but just eye-catching enough, while also securing the edge of the pocket itself to the garment, which I think will make for a more secure pocket either way. Although again, you wouldn't really want to be relying on this as a structurally significant stitch. But obviously, in addition to all the other stitching we've done, you know, that diagonal stitching on the other side and the cross stitching at the top, it's certainly not hurting having this as an extra reinforcement. Oh, well, this has been fun, hasn't it? Oh, it's like a blast from the past. Old friends reuniting, all that jazz. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for today. I'll probably have to tinker on the other panel in the meantime until next week. I'm sure you'll be excited to hear that it'll be canvas time next time. Until then, if you actually need to catch up on the whole wedding suit sewing situation I've alluded to several times throughout this video, you can do so here. Or if you'd like to hear my love letter to the sewing of trousers, you can check that out here. Until then, thanks for watching and have a good one.